Alright, Trial Mob Community Customs. This is some of my favorite stuff to cover because this is where we see a lot of the stuff that are the forbidden fruits that we might never get. But with that said, I did want to give a special shout out to Data Links Magnus. He sent me over some really nice customs and he's been patiently waiting for me to post them here in the Community Customs episodes. And I finally had some time to do that. Now, on top of that, I did want to say, if you do have an opportunity to send me anything, you can always follow me on Instagram at officialxtbgx. And on top of that, when you are looking at these videos, if you have any questions, concerns, obviously go ahead and ask away, but also make sure to take a look at the comment section. I actually had John from Joe Bun Customs, who has been featured on this show before, come in to clarify a few things on some of the customs. So make sure you're always looking at the comment section because there's always a little bit extra there of content from the community itself. Right, let's get it. Alright, Trial Mob, so to start everything off, just some beautiful customs coming from Data Links Magnus himself. So in this first pick, we do have from left to right, we have Rakondo. In the middle, we have Colonel Courage, who has been heavily reimagined. And on the right, we have Shipwreck. Now, one of the cool things that he did here is this is a mix and match of a whole host of different figures. So we have Marauders in the frame. We have Joy Toy. We even have a few 3D printed parts in here. I'm not quite sure which parts were. Maybe you can focus in on it and tell me in the comments down below. But Data did a great job here of just making some absolutely badass characters. I mean, especially with some of the guns that we're seeing here. I hope that you guys know that while I am a huge fan of the G.I. Joe Hasbro stuff, this right here is really what interests me. Now here we have a better look from the side so we can get a good look at these guys. I mean, I've seen these characters before in one shape or form or another, and I gotta admit, this is just a very, very well done setup right here of these characters, especially down to the fact that he's using very realistic guns and some of the realism that we see in the armor choices from Marauders and Joy Toy. Now, as I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of what Hasbro's doing, but at the same time, I kind of wish they just did this right here. So Joy Toy, if you are paying attention, Marauders, if you're paying attention, you should start a G.I. Joe line that's based on a more realistic look of the G.I. Joe themselves, down to the guns, the weaponry, and how they would actually be armored up. And talk to my man's Data Links. Look at what high quality he has put together. I think he would be a great part of the team to be able to put together some stuff for you guys. Now, if you thought that Data Links stopped at just one team, no, we got a second team of guys, and I'm sure you're already paying attention and you know exactly who we're looking at. So again, left to right, we have a Night Force version of Shockwave. We have Flint, we have Beachhead, and on the right, we have Spirit. My favorite one here, man, it's a toss-up, but that Spirit just looks absolutely badass. I don't know where exactly he found the head, and actually now that I'm thinking about it, I believe he mentioned that some of this is actual from the 3 3/4 scale G.I. Joe stuff, so probably some of the heads that we see here, because that Flint looks a little too much like Flint for it to be somebody else. But again, look at how good these guys look. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why the Beachhead figure was such a big figure to have in the 6-inch Hasbro wave, because he was exactly what we wanted. Somebody that literally looked like he was a real soldier in real life. His only downfall was they had those weird fully green guns that went with him that were unpainted. I never liked that. But I mean, here, as you can tell, everybody has a real gun, especially that Shockwave. You guys, those two that he has right there, the shotgun and then what looks like potentially that sniper rifle hanging off from him. These are some really, really creative ways to make just a very modern rendition of G.I. Joe. So big shout out to Data Links. Again, as I mentioned, if any 1/18 scale people are looking at this right now, he is the man you want to go after and get on your team to make this kind of stuff, because I think that a lot of people would love a G.I. Joe line that's a lot more realistic, that comes with realistic guns and look like actual paramilitary. You know, I'm hoping that in the near future, Data Links will actually be able to give us some of the Cobra Troopers and things like that. I would love to see a reimagination of what those guys would look like if they were more realistic and military. So kudos to the man himself. Now, this next custom is brought to you by Kyle Phillips. This is the, I believe it's the M577 from the Alien series. Now, believe it or not, this is actually completely made from wood. Other than the tires that I imagine could be rubber, everything else that you see in here is actually handcrafted, which is a whole nother level of customization that I haven't seen before when it comes to this kind of stuff. But it's absolutely badass. Let me show you a few more photos. Now, I've never watched the Alien series. That's not true. I've watched the Alien series, but I never watched it from beginning to end. So, I don't quite remember some of these, should I say, vehicles. I'm sure there's other ones, or some of the cannons, or some, just in general, some of the things that we've seen on them. So, I couldn't tell you how accurate this is. So, maybe you can tell me if this is looking pretty accurate. But I love the way it looks. I have seen this car before. I don't know all the details about it, but again, I think it looks really badass. And correct me if I'm wrong, but does that turret on the side, is that supposed to swivel to the top? That's really dope if he was able to do that, because again, as you can tell, a lot of this was made from wood. Now, definitely some sweet detailing going on around the entire figure itself, and I believe the cannon on the top also does swivel. If it doesn't, it's still going to look good, but if it does, again, just another level of detail that's really cool with this figure right here. And then here we have a frontal shot, again, looking real nice with those cannons and everything that it has going on. I think it's just overall a really nice aesthetic, and fairly accurate, because I swear, even though I haven't seen the movie before, or should I say from beginning to end, I have seen this in art before, and this definitely captures a lot of what I believe it realistically looked like. Here's a good little side shot, which gives you a good idea of what it, just overall what it looks like, even with the ladder on the side. I mean, there's definitely a lot going on here. Now, this right here is the absolute money shot. So obviously he's still fixing up a lot of it and bringing in the final parts that he needs to make this thing whole. But for me, this is the money shot because it's got an actual cockpit on the inside, and I imagine that it will be able to open up and you'll be able to put figures on the inside of it. So for those of you that are buying the Hayatoy stuff and you're getting all the Marines and things like that, the fact that this can even be made and it's made out of wood, I don't know, something about that is the craftsmanship that it takes to do this kind of stuff is pretty badass. And customizers never seem to not amaze me with some of the things that they're able to make but with their hands. So this is really badass, and while again might be a little bit niche, I think for those of you that are looking at this right now, this would be a must buy if a company were to make this. Doesn't necessarily need to be out of wood, it could be regular plastic or whatever, but it's just cool to see that some people can make it and make it very nice. Now, switching over to another customizer, here we have Tyler Rake from Extraction. Handmade, or should I say hand customized, by Vincent Bo Parker. So this is a really dope look overall. We've seen this guy before. I guess he's very popular right now. Obviously he would, because it is a really dope version of one of Chris Hemsworth's notable characters, and he is a pretty badass. Now, I don't believe he necessarily looked like this in any part of the movie itself, but the head sculpt right here is pretty spot on. That definitely looks like Chris Hemsworth, and it's a really nice overall body. Now, I'm not quite sure which body was used here. I'm going to imagine that this is probably a Marauder, since I can't seem to immediately recognize it as a Joy Toy figure. I think the body looks nice, the guns look great, the colors are awesome, and again, the head sculpt just really brings this thing to life. I don't mean to stress the gun so much, but damn, this is a badass looking gun. Does anybody know what gun this is from? The fact that it comes with everything that it comes on it, the 1/18 scale size, the shoulder strap, even the barrel has some wrapping on it. Maybe the whole thing is a custom, and if that's the case, then that's fine, but damn, this looks really nice. I've never bought Marauder before, and if this is Marauder, can anybody verify that for me? Overall though, this is just a phenomenal pose, just being able to look downstream that way, really badass. Now, if you thought it couldn't get any more badass, Parker brought us this right here, which is 3 of the most badass characters in the world. So from left to right, Tyler Rake, John Wick, and Frank Castle. This would be the literal kill team. If you see these 3 guys coming at you, it's over. Now, I don't have any more photos of the 2 on the right, so I couldn't tell you any more details on them, but as you can imagine, probably also Marauders, could be partially Joy Toy, but definitely a wonderful looking pic of some of the most badass characters I've ever seen in movie and show franchises. Now, switching over to Moonbeam Laser, he actually did a really cool little custom. Just basically did a head swap and a gun swap, and I have to admit that it is really nice. Now, I think I see a little something on the shoulder that looks a little different. Now, I've never had this figure before, but I do believe this is the EOS Raider from the Acid Rain line. That's what the body is, and then the head I thought was Planet Green Valley, but actually what it is, it's one of the heads from the maintenance teams from Joy Toy. Now, as you can tell, thanks to the body type that we got from the Acid Rain line EOS figure, it looks really good. This actually goes with it very, very, very nicely. And this just kind of goes to show in terms of, obviously, a lot of the weapons that we see here from Acid Rain are always very large, which I don't have a problem with. But as you can tell from looking at it, more realistic looking guns look absolutely phenomenal in some of the more realistic looking figures. So I do need to get the link for where to get that gun from, but the head, as I mentioned, is from the maintenance teams from Joy Toy line, so you can do any of which ones you want. But I like this. It's a very simple custom, just a little head swap and a little gun swap, but it looks so cool. I actually had to ask him immediately what these were, because I thought it was a completely different figure at first before I realized it was just a nice and simple custom that's very easy to make, that a lot of you probably already have a lot of these pieces to begin with anyway. You just need that gun to go with it. But again, just something that was nice and simple, and I really enjoy this one. Now from Fox Forge Toys, we have these Stardust 3 3/4 inch scale figures. This is something that Damon posted. These are not customs. These are actually 3D printed figures. Only 5 points of articulation. I believe they are coming out with a 6-inch scale, which is going to have more of the normal articulation that we've seen before. Definitely like what I'm seeing here, but the reason why I'm covering this is not so much because of what you're seeing here, but because on top of that, they're also making these right here, basically unpainted prints. And so what I wanted to mention here was, while these are obviously not anything that has been customized just yet, these could always be something that I would be happy to feature on my community customs, because these unpainted figures can be painted any which way you would like. So if anybody decides to buy any of these, by all means DM me them so I can go ahead and take a look at what you got, because this, while not my, obviously I buy 3 3/4 inch scale stuff, I don't buy 5 points of articulation type toys. It's just way too basic for me, but that doesn't mean I don't like the way that they look. And these unpainted ones can be painted into any which way possible. Could be a pretty badass figure. This right here is just a few of the choices, just a little bit more close-ups. You can see what they have going on. Definitely, I like seeing the variety and some of the races that we're seeing here of some of these figures. If you know me, you already know that this right here is my favorite one without a doubt. Now I know that they're going to make these guys in 6-inch scale, and most likely that'll be really cool, but I wouldn't mind them doing something very similar in this 1/18 scale and having the same amount of articulation, or at least just more than what we're seeing. I honestly could very much see these guys get painted kind of like the Halo Marines, at least from the first Halo series, because this is kind of what they look like, and I think that that would be a really dope thing to have. And again, if they just have better articulation, to then be able to pose those next to your 1/18 scale stuff from the Halo, I think it's Jazzwares does it, right? And then right here, I believe this is just a regular figure that is helmeted. Could be any race, could be anything under there. So it's just a regular cannon fodder character. But again, they all look very nice. It's a really dope looking figure overall. And again, I would love to see you guys do some kind of customs in the future.